I am Tony Gerdeman, here as always with Tom or Tom. How's it going?
Tony, I'm doing super. Do you get it?
Sadly, I get it, Tom. It's unfortunate that we had to start the show that way. I apologize, but that's why you guys are here. You know better. You know this kind of stuff is going to happen. I'm just glad we weren't somewhere else where there was a worse pun you could have made. I'm sure there are plenty of places, but we are here at the Superdome, the Mercedes-Benz Superdome. I have to get the sponsors in there, not our sponsors.
Are we getting paid for them? Oh, in that case, we don't have to get the sponsors in.
Welcome to the Canes Superdome.
I didn't say I was doing Mercedes-Benz. I said I was doing super.
That's true. That's true. So we are here. Got to New Orleans today. Pretty nice town. We've already had our po' boys.
We have. Yeah, we had shrimp po' boy, jambalaya. That was just lunch. I somehow had 2 New Orleans meals in one meal. It was good. Might skip dinner. Might have hit my salt intake for the next 72 hours or so, but that's all right. It was quite delicious, and cross that one off the list.
Based on the food we've had yesterday in Alabama and then today, I can't get enough water in me.
Yeah, I'm thinking, like, as soon as we get back to the hotel, I'm probably just going to go ahead and take about a 4 or 5 mile run, sort of sweat some of the meat sweats out, and get ready to, I assume we'll eat something at some point later this trip. We better get some of the sodium out right now.
Yeah, and so today was the Ohio State defense, the Clemson offense. So we talked to Kerry Combs, Jonathan Cooper, thank you, Crow, Tommy Togiai, Haskell, Garrett, Sean Wade, Pete Werner, Justin Hilliard. Boom, that's all 6, and the coach, Kerry Combs. I can't do all 6 of the Clemson Tigers. I probably could, but Trevor Lawrence, Travis Etienne, Matt Bockhorst, a couple of receivers, and their tight end, and Tony Elliott, their offensive coordinator. Tom, you have to give me full credit for that.
I do. I was driving, so I was really not taking notes. So, yeah. Armani Walker we talked to. Rogers, sorry. Thank you for the assist. He's their slot receiver. I remembered him. Yeah, and then another receiver and a tight end. So, yeah, we got a good representative sample of both offense and defense. Learned a lot thanks to some national reporters. Like that Trevor Lawrence is apparently good at football.
Sneaky good.
People might not know that. That was great insight. I feel like we learned a lot.
It was one of the popular topics, both yesterday and today, has been, is Ohio State and Clemson a rivalry? We talked about it yesterday. It was talked about some more. You mentioned Amari Rogers, and he said, no, it's not a rivalry. I feel like Ohio State has more beef with us than we do with them, which is a very nice, not so subtle, like smack in the face, like, just know your place. You are not on Clemson's level. That's how I took it, and I don't know that you could take it any other way, Tom.
Well, I mean, it is one of those things that is both factual and kind of a shot at Ohio State, which, and it's probably also true. Like, Clemson right now probably looks at Ohio State as, yeah, they're the team that we play a bunch, and we play a bunch of high stakes games with them, but until Ohio State beats them, Clemson doesn't have a whole lot to gripe about. So, and I think Ohio State came away from last year's game with feeling like it should have won, and with some reasons they felt that they didn't win, and that probably has stirred some bad emotions on Ohio State's end. Clemson moved on. Clemson, got to play in this building behind us right after they played that Ohio State game. They talked about how they had some unfinished business from what happened to them against LSU in this building 2 weeks after they played Ohio State. So that's where LSU is. That's where Clemson is sort of having some things that they're probably a little bit annoyed about. Ohio State, until Ohio State beats them, Clemson doesn't really have that much to be upset about.
It was interesting to hear the Clemson players asked about this place and how they always lose here. I think most of the players are like 0-2 or 0-3. So that's, if you're looking for some positives for Ohio State, we know there aren't many. That's one. New Orleans is apparently their kryptonite. So keep that in mind. But talking to Kerry Combs today and how much it helps his defense to go against the Ohio State receivers, he said these guys we are playing are just like them. And them referring to the Ohio State receivers. I don't necessarily agree with that. I think Ohio State's receivers are better. And there's been a lot of talk about how Ohio State shut their receivers down last year, how Dabo and his receiver coach and the Tony Elliott, the offensive coordinator, have just been challenging the receivers all week long about, look what happened to you guys last year, even though most of the guys that were involved weren't really involved in that game. Well, Amari Rogers was.
Right.
But that they've just been challenged to take it up another level. If you want to win this game, it's going to be the receivers have to get their jobs done. And we've talked all along about how important it is for this Ohio State secondary to contain the passing game, but the receivers are talking about that. They have to win their one-on-one matchups. They have to step up like they didn't last year. And it seems like they've taken on a more of an ownership role in this entire game.
Yeah, and it's an interesting comparison because it's like, okay, they're the same two teams, and it's only 12 months apart. How different could it be? But no Justin Ross this year, no T. Higgins this year, no Damon Arnett this year, no Jeff Okudah this year, no Jordan Fuller this year. I mean, there's for a 1 year difference, there's a ton of turnover there. And last year, I think it was really a strength on strength thing to go from a Justin Ross and a T. Higgins and a couple guys who are corners who got drafted in the first round on Ohio State side of the ball to the wide receivers have flatly not been super fantastic for Clemson this year. And the corners for Ohio State have been not as good as they were last year. I don't think anything on any of that is going to be remotely controversial. So you've kind of gone from a strength on strength to like a meh on meh. And so, again, I think there is one really obvious mismatch there that might work in Clemson's favor, and we can talk about that. But, on the whole, I don't think that the outside receivers are going to be probably a huge impact in this game for Clemson. I don't think you necessarily see 100 yards out of either of the outside receivers. I think from the Ohio State perspective, Amari Rogers on Marcus Williamson is the one to kind of go, let's see how that goes.
I know Tony Elliott and Sean Wade were both talking up Sevyn Banks, and it's always interesting to hear the opposing coach talk about the good things of the Ohio State Buckeyes and what they like about them, even though sometimes we see many times just their flaws. Like the opposing coaches talk about their strengths and his size and his length and how big he is, and Sean Wade echoed those same sentiments with Sevyn Banks. But I'm with you. I think it's the inside stuff that can go all over the place. Amari Rogers is a deep threat. We saw that against Notre Dame. We've seen that many other times. And we're still trying to figure out what this Ohio State secondary is against Northwestern. Kerry Combs today said they had 3 healthy safeties. He's hoping they're more full strength this week. Didn't give any insight into whether that would be the case.
It almost has to be.
Yeah.
I mean,
Marcus Hooker was a game time decision. That was not a COVID thing.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, 3 safeties. We were on the way over here going, okay, he said 3 safeties. So who are the 3 safeties? Okay. You've got Josh Proctor. There's one. You've got who else? Ronnie Hickman.
Lathan Ransom.
Out, so Ronnie Hickman's out. So Lathan Ransom was 2. And then it's like, is he counting Cameron Martinez as the 3rd safety? Is he thinking about a walk-on? Because you had no Ronnie Hickman, no
Bryson
Shaw, no
Hooker,
no Marcus Hooker, no Court Williams. He's still out. I mean, they have 7 safeties on the roster, and it's to be down to 3 of them, and one of them is a guy who we're kind of looking at each other like, I guess he's the last one they're counting, but not really, because we don't really think of him necessarily as a safety, because he hasn't really been in the rotation. A lot of the guys that we talk about as guys who are like right kind of on that next level, Hooker obviously, and Bryson Shaw, those 3 guys are all out. Like, okay, you can only lose so many guys and then it gets pretty thin. And you're seeing that at corner as well with the guys they've lost over the last year at corner.
Yeah, and it was so long ago we were talking about hearing good things about Legend Cavazos, and there's been no opportunity really to play him in the 2 games they've played in that 6 weeks ago when we were first talking about him possibly stepping up. And so I can't wait to see who is involved. It could be anybody. Lathan Ransom probably will be involved, just to see what they do and how they do things, what things they've changed, who stands out. Do they try to strengthen the weaknesses, or do they just try to give them help? Do they replace people or do they just try to help them out? That's what I don't know.
Yeah, and I could see them trying to make a point to just keep the big plays. Don't let the big plays happen. So maybe you're playing more too deep safety looks, and that you're sort of, if they're worried about Marcus Williamson against Amari Rodgers, maybe you help them. You help them out by making sure there's always a safety there. So if Rodgers gets past him, there's someone else there, and it doesn't turn it automatically into 6 points. Maybe you've got, if they're worried about crossing routes, you can keep one of those middle linebackers and one of the inside backers in the middle of the field to kind of help out with that stuff. I mean, there are ways to sort of mitigate the issue. I would assume that they are on defense just basically looking to limit the damage.
Yeah.
Don't let Clemson score quickly. Ohio State probably wants to hold the ball, move, 8 plays, 10 plays, keep the clock moving, keep Clemson's offense off the field. When Clemson's offense is on the field, make them work for it. Make them go 6 plays, 8 plays, 10 plays, so they can't, you can't score too quickly. If Ohio State and Clemson are both putting together 8, 10-play drives, this game stays in the 30s, that's probably good news for Ohio State.
Yeah, and we talked after the show last night, you and I, just, Ohio State, maybe they shorten the game. Try to shorten it, go a little bit slower, just take their time. No reason to give Clemson as many opportunities as you can or as they want, especially if you can run the ball and just keep the ball away. And I'm not talking trestle ball, because Ryan Day will always be aggressive, and he's going to continue to throw the ball, especially when you have Justin Fields. I think to go trestle ball with Justin Fields would maybe be a disservice to the offense. But again, the point is to win the game the surest way possible. And if you can run the ball, I think they learned their lesson last week. If you can run the ball, you do that. But we also saw that they still did try to throw. Justin Fields just wasn't capable of it, where he should be better suited to do that this week.
Yeah, and there are some indications. We talked about, sort of reading the tea leaves on the answers on Justin Fields' thumb. There have been some reports that maybe it's less of an issue than we thought at the time when we talked yesterday. You can just, you can weigh all of these different things and judge as you see fit. I think we'll probably all know by the middle of the first quarter where things stand. It would not surprise me if they came out and just, if he's feeling decent, take a shot downfield early, let Clemson know, hey, this is a club that's in our bag, and be aware, and
respect
then that potential, respect. Just even if you miss it, you take one shot downfield to Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson. Maybe keep those safeties back a little bit, open things up a little bit more for the run.
Yeah, and you attack the backup safety in there. So but Tom, we talked about the offense yesterday. All right,
yes.
Let's stick with the Ohio State defense, because that's what's going to win the game.
People like good news.
Yeah, come on, Tom. One of the things I liked is Tony Elliott, the Clemson offensive coordinator, said that he was surprised and impressed by everything Pete Werner was able to do last year. And that's another one where an opposing coach gives you insight into how good a player is. And just, he can do everything. He runs like a safety, he hits like a linebacker, and now he's closer to the ball, so he's even more impactful. And against Travis Etienne, who they held to 36 yards rushing and on 10 carries last year, they shut him down, Tom, except for the 2 touchdown passes for about 93 yards, I think. So that is another way that they get him involved that has to be slowed down. Kerry Combs said you can't stop Clemson, but that's an area where they just weren't able to handle that last year. But now they're looking for it. They think they're ready for it, but I don't know how ready you can be when you get a guy like that out in space.
Yeah, it's interesting to hear that kind of conversation, because that's the way other teams always talk about Ohio State. Hey, control the ball, keep their offense off the field. You can't stop them, but you try and contain them. You try and make them work for it. The way other teams talk about Ohio State is the way Ohio State talks about Clemson, and I think the way that Clemson talks about Ohio State as well. These are two relatively balanced teams, and these are the two best teams that this is the best team that either of these teams is going to have played this year. Like, no disrespect to Notre Dame, but they're not as good as either of these two teams. And so this is a really interesting matchup, and I think there is sort of an inherent tendency for people to look at, either just look at the good of their team or look at just the bad of their team and go, well, here's the 17 things that are wrong with this team. And you look at an Alabama team and it's like, well, no one's going to stop Alabama. And then Alabama fans are going, well, I mean, the defense did just give up 46 points to Florida, so you can't feel super great about the defense. So, then you'll have people who are convinced that Ohio State's going to win this game by 30 points because, everything's going to click all of a sudden, and they've been saving all the secret, wonderful plays for this game. And, the truth is somewhere in the middle for probably just about all of them.
You've had time to put new stuff in. You haven't had all the time to do that, but you also haven't had time to get young guys involved like they would do with bowl practice, where it's another separate spring camp so they don't have that. So they're just focused on the game. It's game prep. That's all this is. And so you do have time to put some stuff in and then also practice it and work it, see what works. The lesson that Clemson learned, I think, last year, that they bring back into this one is how physical Ohio State was. And it was the most physical game Clemson played in last year, and it caught them off guard, as it sometimes does for Ohio State opponents, but they bounced back. I think they even won the game at the end. I can't recall. But it's something that they are prepared for. Tom, how much does that help them knowing what's coming? And does that take Ohio State's maybe biggest advantage down a notch?
I don't know how much it really prepares you. Like, the fist is coming and it's going to hurt. So, I mean, I guess, does that make you wince? Does that make you, are you spending time worrying about that as opposed to, focusing on the task at hand? I don't know. I mean, if it was something that caught Clemson by surprise, and the fact that Ohio State jumped out to the kind of lead that they did, clearly Clemson was not ready for what Ohio State was bringing last year. So maybe that did catch them a little bit by surprise. But at the same time, you also have two true freshmen on that defensive line who were not a part of that team. You've got a bunch of new starters on both sides of the ball, 4 new starters on the Clemson offensive line who were not a part, and so they were there and they heard all about how physical it was, but they weren't the ones getting banged on in the trenches for 4 quarters. So, Akeem says everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face, and that's exactly it. That's the old Mike Tyson line, and it's like you could go into a Mike Tyson fight back in the 80s knowing, hey, this guy punches real hard. And guess what Mike Tyson did to a whole bunch of people 30 seconds into the fight anyway? Michael Spinks knew Mike Tyson hit pretty hard, and Michael Spinks also didn't make it out of the first round like that, and that happened to a lot of people. So, I don't think that solves the problem for Clemson. Maybe it helps them prepare for it a little bit. Maybe it has them a little bit more physical in practice leading up to it to get ready for it. But I mean, this is a Clemson team that's faced Alabama too. Alabama is not a
soft.
Alabama is not typically known as a real finesse team. So, I remember thinking in that first half, like last year, like Clemson looks completely lost. I mean, completely lost, completely outgunned, like they're about ready to get blown off the field.
Yes.
And Ohio State kept kicking field goals, and then you had the targeting call that kind of swung the game, and then it all swung from there. But yeah, I mean, if Ohio State can come out and be that physical and can just dominate the game on both sides of the ball in the trenches, okay, at that point, if they can do that again, then that's if they can hold that for four quarters, that changes the conversation about this game a lot.
In those trenches, while they are trying to get to Trevor Lawrence is going to escape. They have to flush him, but then keep him contained, and then hope that you just chase him into a teammate. Knowing what they know now, the Ohio State defense knows more about Trevor Lawrence and how fast he is and how much ability he has to get out of the pocket. What Kerry Combs said, he's deceptively fast. He can even outrun the angles. He's a play extender, and if you watch the Notre Dame game, he's running out of the pocket a lot. They do a bunch of sprints and bootlegs and things like that, where he's just and he's comfortable throwing on the run. It does take away half the field, so I almost think that's kind of a good thing. But just the Ohio State defense knowing more about him and being able to understand that we better take a better angle this time around. I think that helps them. It doesn't, as you said, it doesn't solve any problems. Yeah. But it gives them more information.
Yeah, and you can tell your safeties, like, okay, in your minds, add 3 yards to wherever
Yeah.
you think this dude's going to be, and take your angles accordingly. Don't go to where you think he's going to be. Go to where you think he is +3 and meet him there. And I mean, you saw there were a couple big plays he made with his legs last year. There was a long touchdown in the second half, late first half. The 50-something yard touchdown run. That was just a backbreaker for Ohio State. And then he had a run on their last touchdown drive as well. On Clemson's last touchdown drive, he had a long run as well. And, he's not going to run 25 times. This is not like a Braxton Miller kind of thing. But if he needs to run 5-10 times, he can run 5-10 times. He might run the same amount as Justin Fields.
Yeah.
Justin Fields is not going to run 30 times against Clemson, probably. But, and when people say deceptively fast about a white guy, we all kind of go, yes, we know what you mean by deceptively fast. He also, though, it's true I grew up a Mets fan, and people used to say Darryl Strawberry, yes. People used to call Darryl Strawberry deceptively fast because he didn't look like he was running. It was like Terrell Pryor.
Yeah, Robert Smith, same thing.
Robert
Terrell
Smith,
Pryor.
you didn't think he was. It didn't look like he was moving that fast, and it was just all of a sudden
Yeah.
5 yards every stride. Like, how did he get that far? He's going so slowly. How did he go so fast? So, and you get a little bit of that of Trevor Lawrence as well, because he's 6'6". I mean,
6'6".
and Darryl Strawberry was 6'6", and it's just like when you're gaining an extra foot every
Right.
time you stride, that adds up pretty quickly.
Robert Smith, also 6'6".
How many phone books was he standing on?
Terrell Pryor was 6'6" in high school, and the NFL he became 6'4".
Strange.
I want to talk about Haskell Garrett.
Okay.
Because we know where his story began this season, getting shot in the face and nearly losing his life, thinking there's no chance he's going to play. He's back pretty quickly practicing. The first time he's back, he's making plays in the backfield, a sack or two. Looks like a completely different player. And now this past week, it's named first team All-American. We talked to Haskell Garrett today. Hey, man, what's it like? Congratulations on being All-American. How's it feel? He's like, well, I'm not really focused on that. I'll think about it after the season. Right now, I'm focused on the team and winning. And that's what you would expect him to say. So you have to ask other people about him. And I asked Kerry Combs about him. And first, Kerry Combs was I asked him, have you ever seen anything like this? Have you ever seen anybody have the kind of turnaround or whatever that he has had? He said, no. And hopefully I never will again, just based on what Haskell Garrett what had happened to him. And he said that since that has happened, Haskell Garrett is more passionate guy. He's more engaged. Combs said they hug each other more, and it's just he's got a new lease on life. I'm sure figuratively, literally, and any kind of vernacular you want to put, because he literally does. I mean, he nearly lost his life. And now he has it again, and is so much ahead of him. And Tom, he might even be back next year.
Yeah, I mean, and that was an interesting question. Someone asked, so have you made a decision yet? Because he was not part of that senior day video that Ohio State put out, and he said he hasn't. He's gonna talk it over. I would think he probably is gonna leave, probably. And if you're coming off an All-American season and you're having the year he had, you're getting picked somewhere. This is not, you're not going to go undrafted. So, yeah, I could see him being ready to take that leap. But, he is you can completely see where that change of perspective would come from. If you had some time when you thought you were going to die, or even if I don't die, am I ever going to be able to eat solid food again? Play football again? I mean, any of that, all the stuff you maybe took for granted before, all of a sudden you're not taking it for granted. And that can really, you develop a new passion, and you have an opportunity to get on the field as quickly as he did this season. There was a role there. I mean, that was, go back to some of the shows late summer, that was one of our big concerns for this team, was where is the interior defensive line play going to come? There's Tommy Togiai, and then who else? And they've had guys step up. Antoine Jackson has been pretty decent. But Haskell Garrett has been the one that has really made a difference on the inside there, where it's just, I think we both thought, if he can come back and play at some point, he should be fine, and he now is an All-American.
Yeah.
Like there have been some unpleasant surprises for Ohio State this year. He has been probably the single most pleasant surprise for this team.
Yeah, I would agree. It's a long way to go for that kind of just re-energizing. I would think the ghosts of Christmas past, present, and future would be easier to go through. That might be a little simpler than everything that Haskell Garrett has gone through. But props to that guy, and he's one of those guys you root for sure. Do we want to get to questions?
Yeah, we have a bunch of questions. If you guys do have questions, feel free to throw them in the chat function. We will go through this as we can. Scott asked if we went to Dreamland while we were in Tuscaloosa. No, we went to
Archibald's and Woodrow's.
Archibald's and Woodrow's. That was the one that was recommended to us.
It was good.
One of the other ones that was recommended was Moe's Original Barbecue. There's a location in Ohio. If you want to try a Tuscaloosa Original, Moe's Original Barbecue, coming out to lovely Newark, Ohio, in Licking County, about half an hour east of Columbus, there is a location there.
No ads, Tom.
No, sorry. Where are the daiquiris? We're working.
We've been busy all day.
Scott asked any more insight on Justin's injury. I mean, I think that
it sounds good.
It sounds more optimistic than we were anticipating. We'll see.
Maybe we read too much into the comments yesterday from the coaches. It didn't feel like it from Ryan Day and Justin Fields, but seems like things might be okay there.
OG Buckeye says, why did they think Seven Banks was Deion Sanders? I don't think that's fair. I think Seven Banks is a pretty good tackler. Scott Walker, how strong is Lathan? I mean, Lathan Ransom is...
He's 6'1", 6'2", and pushing 195, something like that. He had some nice hits at the end of the Northwestern game. So he's I don't know that you need him in physical. You need him to be able to cover and tackle.
Yeah. OG Buckeye says, need Kerry Combs to play slot corner. He's probably a little old. Not sure he has any eligibility left, but they need someone to play slot corner. And I mean, if it's Marcus Williamson, that would be. I mean, if you tell me what kind of game Marcus Williamson has on Friday, I think I can tell you about how this game goes.
If the focus is on keeping everything in front of you, don't bite on stuff that has nothing to do with you, and then you're winning just by not giving up those plays that go behind you when you're jumping on something that you probably don't need to.
Akeem says it's going to come down to whoever can use the chess pieces better. Ohio State has way better offense. He's hoping Ryan Day puts the guys in the position to do it. I mean, if I think the answer is it always comes down to the trenches, and it just, does Ohio State have the advantage in the trenches that I think they might? Maybe.
It almost doesn't matter if they do between the 20s. It's what do they do inside the 20, in that red zone. Yeah. Because you could push them all around like they did last time, but if you don't finish it, a lot of it's for nothing.
Yeah, you need sevens instead of threes. OG Buckeye says hopefully Emeka Egbuka can early enroll so he can play in the game. He cannot. OJ Buckeye says Nolan Turner's just tough Borland playing safety. I mean, in a way, I guess, because I think people think he's slow and not very good, and yet the coaches keep putting him out there, so maybe there's something there.
He reminds me, Tom, of Donnie Nicky.
I remember thinking unkind things about Donnie Nicky, and then he was the starting safety on a national championship team, and I was like, that's weird.
4-year starter.
4-year starter. Weird. What is Clemson's Achilles heel? I mean, offensive line is very young. Got some young guys on the defensive line. There's some turnover in the defensive backfield. Nolan Turner's missing the first half. I mean, like there's stuff there.
You look at the receivers. We know Amari Rogers. They've been starting a true freshman. They also have a fifth-year senior. And sometimes when you have a fifth-year senior at receiver at Ohio State or Clemson or Alabama, you're like, well, what's wrong with that guy?
Yeah.
It's like,
it's the Austin Mack and Ben Victor situation last year.
Clearly, he's there because guys have been injured or turned pro early, and he's just stuck it out. And now he got an invite to the Senior Bowl, so things have worked out for him. But you always like, why are you a redshirt senior at a position of skill position?
Speaking of veteran players, hopefully Brendan White transfers back within the next 3 days. Brendan White just declared for the NFL, so he's unavailable. Raekwon asked if we've had any beignets yet. Do you even know what beignets are?
Aren't they like little donut holes?
sort of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll get
I'm
there,
guessing.
don't worry.
I'm guessing. Yeah, we got here at lunchtime today, so we've only had lunch. So I'm gonna guess we will find our way over to Cafe Du Monde at some point in the next couple days. Let's see.
Don't rush us.
Yes. People are asking about Chris Olave. Yes, Chris Olave is. Yeah, Ohio State put it out there today. I think they put a picture where he was sort of in the background a couple days ago, and people were kind of doing the enhance to see if it was him. And they put one out today that was like, a little clearer picture, and it was, here's Chris Olave at practice. So, Vinay asked, going to have to leave a linebacker spy to get Trevor. Do you think that's a high risk? I mean,
that you get a guy like Baron Browning there, or it shouldn't be Tough Borland. I think we can agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
Justin Hilliard, they've got enough guys, or do you do it with that second safety? Because it's that second safety that allows him to, not having that second safety was what hurt them last year with those keepers.
Yeah, Mark T asks, who's the one player that is not being talked about that you guys think will have a big game for the Buckeyes? I think it's one of those linebackers, whether it's Baron Browning, Justin Hilliard, one of those guys is going to have a good game in order to hold Clemson in check in the ways that Clemson is going to try and attack.
Justin Hilliard, the ball finds him. He finds the ball. He's going to be those guys. Is he able to tackle Travis Etienne on a swing pass? Is he able to trip up Trevor Lawrence as he's getting outside the pocket? I could see that. And he's got good hands. He forces fumbles. He recovers fumbles, and it's he's doing it at the right time at the end of his career.
Yeah.
And he will not be back.
No. Vinay says, Coach Day, remember to run the ball to set up the pass. I mean, I would assume he has learned that lesson from the last game. Everyone else did. I would assume he did as well. Vinay said Clemson also struggles covering jet sweeps. I mean, maybe you see Julian Fleming, Garrett Wilson. I mean, Garrett Wilson is an interesting person to keep an eye on in the first half, because without Nolan Turner there, who's on Garrett Wilson? And if it's a backup on Garrett Wilson, that's something you're going to, in the way that teams always seem to go after the guy who has just come in for Ohio State needs to do that.
And as long as Justin Fields is okay, I don't care who's on Chris Olave.
Yeah. Nate Richards says, are you guys doing another podcast with the Clemson guys this year? Yes, our buddy Matt Connolly from the State newspaper is getting in on tomorrow the 30th.
Yes.
I think he's getting in sometime tomorrow. We will make sure we do something with Matt, whether it's a Buckeye Weekly or a Morning Scoop or something. I had Matt on last week. There's an episode called What's the Deal with Dabo Swinney? You can find that on YouTube. I think everyone else has already. So, it's always a good conversation with Matt. Every time we have Matt on, everyone goes, hey, I like him. He seems really realistic. It's like, yes. There are reasons we are friends with the people we are friends with. Ben says, any news on the Master Teague injury? I haven't heard anything about the Master Teague injury.
Again, we've been driving for 2 days.
Well, and I don't know that Master Teague is the guy I would expect to. I mean, we saw Master Teague against this defense last year. It didn't look like it was a super great matchup for him. We saw Trey Sermon against Northwestern. I don't anticipate Master Teague is the starting tailback in this game, winner, healthy or not.
Little Mayan Williams this week?
I would expect to see some Mayan Williams this week, potentially. I mean, he's got a little make you miss.
It's been interesting to watch his little trajectory, just little glimpses, just teasing a little bit.
Yeah, and
he's a burlesque house. You only get to see a little.
The Maison Derriere.
Exactly.
That's French for Superdome.
You're not talking about the bordello, are you?
I was only talking about it to get directions on how to get away from it.
I hope somebody understands what we're talking about.
I'm sure if they listen to our show, I'm sure they do. Vinay says he thinks we should do cover 2. Etienne struggles running. The key is to stop him on screens. I mean, I think there's a decent possibility. We talked about that earlier. Keep those guys back. Keep everything in front of you. Make them go 8-10.
It almost feels like Clemson wants them to be the single high.
Yeah.
And so why do what they want you to do? Even though this is what Ohio State does, this is who they are, but it's not entirely who they are.
Right. Scott asked, is Clemson looking ahead to Bama? I don't think they're looking ahead to Bama, because this is not – they didn't blow Ohio State off the field last year. If last year was 31-0, you could maybe have that argument. I think Clemson knows they got a little lucky and they got the ever-living heck beaten out of them last year. I don't think you look – even if even go back to the boxer, even if you're the boxer who won, if you got a rematch against the guy who beat the ever-living heck out of you for 12 rounds and you won on a narrow decision, well, I don't think you're overlooking that guy the next time.
see what happens if you overlook him.
OG Buckeye says Justin Hilliard always looked good when he plays. Not sure why he hasn't played more in the past 17 seasons he's been here. A lot of it's been injuries. He just has not been able to stay healthy. I mean, that's the biggest thing. He's been, he is someone who the coaches and other players absolutely love, have loved for multiple years, and it's just like, yep, one year he blows out his bicep, one year he blows out his Achilles. Like, I mean, you can't stay on the field, you can't play.
Right, and we saw Brendan White transfer because Pete Werner was playing in front of him, and Justin Hilliard was playing Sam last year too. But they found ways to get Justin Hilliard on the field in that four linebacker look because he is so good when he's healthy.
Donald says Buckeyes plus 250 money line, $200 bet pays off almost $500. What are the chances the Buckeyes hit? I mean, we'll do our game predictions in another show later this week because we're here for a while, so we can't give it to all. We're also gonna have to tease you a little bit. We've got a few more shows to do this week, but I mean, I think even if you want to be a little bit pessimistic about Ohio State, I think they play this game 10 times. Ohio State wins 4. So if you're getting 2-1 odds, I mean, I'm not telling you you're going to win the bet. I'm saying if you want to say that Ohio State wins this game 4 out of 10 times, getting 2-1, plus 200 is decent. That's decent value. Plus 250. I mean, plus 250 is decent money if you think Ohio State's going to be a 40% chance to win. G Fish says the Buckeyes are going to give it all they have on this one. I don't think that's much of a question about that. I mean, they are. I mean, there were a bunch of questions this year, which is kind of funny. That people asking Clemson's, what's your Ohio State's motivation is that they want to avenge this loss. What's your motivation? It's like, well, they do go to the national championship if they win.
Although it was Matt Bockhorst was like, well, our motivation is intrinsic, and we really we need to live up to a standard, and it's something that Dabo has taught us, and it's like. Just say you want to go to win a national championship. You don't. I mean, they didn't win it last year, so they fell short of their goals. I mean, what kind of motivation? There's some bad questions being asked at times, and sometimes it's us doing it. But this time it was not.
No. Vinay says Sean Wade better not get ejected this year. Boy, that would be not good if Sean Wade got ejected this year. That would be a real. I mean, you think they have problems in the defensive backfield now? Take Sean Wade off the field.
Tom, don't even say that.
Donald says this is a repeat of 2002. I mean, in terms of, this is a very different team. This is a much more explosive offense, not nearly as good of a defense, and they're not. This is not a Clemson team that's viewed as unbeatable.
No.
If they get to Alabama and they're a 14-point underdog against Alabama, then you can have the Ohio State Miami conversation. Then. Probably not yet. This is a game where you're not going to have a lot of people picking Ohio State to win, but you will have some people picking Ohio State to win. Nate Richards says any word on Jackson Smith and Jigba. We are not going to go into specifics on individual guys. I will say, I will just tell you what Ryan Day has said, which is they expect to get a bunch of guys back. So you can read into that what you want to read into that. On any of these individual ones. OJ Buckeye says Jackson Smith and Jigba isn't getting any touches anyways. I mean, some, and
he would have last week.
He would have last week if he had been there, against Northwestern. Yakov says, do you think it'd be fun to cover Dabo on a regular basis? I mean, I think this game is super fun to cover because there's so much. I mean, normally it's such a, oh no, you're the prettiest girl. Oh no, you're the pretty. Oh, you're such a pretty football girl. This game is like, you can tell these teams really genuinely don't like her. They have, just little stuff like Kevin Wilson's tweet about, he had to miss Christmas to break down Citadel tape, and they might run some triple option. They're having a little bit of fun with it. Also, they really don't like each other. That's fun. I want that. I don't want the, oh, no, they're so good at football. No. If you don't like each other, just say you don't like each other. Just don't make it contrived like a boxing thing. But, if you don't like each other, that's great. Be the Steve Spurrier who just do little jabs. And Dabo's doing a little bit of the Steve Spurrier thing. And it's I know Ohio State fans don't like it. I love it. I love when teams are willing to go back and forth and that's I'm here for it.
And then Ryan Day, even with the I don't know how Clemson is so good at getting the play calls right on defense. Just a little thing, do that out there for the people who are listening.
Yeah, and if you want to know the story behind that one, Google Brent Venables stealing signs and see if anything comes up.
Yeah.
Tim asked what referee crew was working the game. It's a Big 12 crew, yeah. So I don't know specific referees, but it's not an SEC crew, so you can...
No, they're just up in the replay booth.
Yes. Vinay says Justin has to use the tight ends on the seams. Let me stop you right there. And crossing routes, still tight ends. Let me stop you right there. Troy says, wonder if Day's using Dabo ranking 11 at OSU at 11 as some type of bulletin board material. It's the darndest thing. All the Ohio State players seem to have heard about it.
Yes, they have. But that's not their focus. But yes, they have heard about it. I assume there's just a bunch of 11s around the WAC for no reason at all.
You wonder if people, if you might see it like in a number 11 shirt or something if they win. That's the kind of thing that you might see. You might headline your article, number 11 Ohio State beats number 2 Clemson, comma whatever the score is. And if you don't, I might go in and edit it because these things must be done. Vinay says out routes will need to be executed better this time with Chris Olave.
Yes.
And I mean they will be. I mean they should be. I mean Fields was bad at the Big Ten championship game. It's going to be better with Olave. They're not going to be as open necessarily, but Ben asked about Baron Browning. I will refer to my previous answer. Akeem says it's extremely crucial that Ohio State comes out and sets the tone right from the beginning. No games, just bring the pain. I mean, I think that's the plan. I mean, if Ohio State can come out and run Trey Sermon 8 times for 75 yards and score a touchdown and just absolutely pave Clemson off the field, that's the message they would love to send. Whether they can do it, we'll see.
Yeah, that's a statement that doesn't necessarily involve a whole bunch of trickery.
Mm-hmm.
That's just lining up and running the ball. And so how does Clemson then combat that? How do they go back to try to stop that? And as they're on the sideline trying to fix it, and it's hard to fix being out physical if that's what happens.
Well, and that's the thing. Like you always hear old football coaches, and this was like the Earl Bruce every year before Michigan. Oh, the tougher team's gonna win the game. Got to win the game in the trenches, and you all kind of roll your eyes like, okay, for the 900th consecutive year, and then it's like, well, turns out if one team kicks the other one's butt in the trenches, turns out they win a lot. How about that? Sometimes old football coaches know something about football.
Sometimes.
That's the strangest thing. Vinay says Justin has to use his legs this game as well. Clemson's linebackers not used to dual threats this year. I mean, I feel like we say this every time there's a big game. This seems like a game where they are going to have to run Justin Fields more. They save him. They don't. I mean, they did this with JT Barrett to a certain degree too, where it's like they're not going to run JT Barrett 20 times against Tulsa, but when they're playing Penn State and they absolutely positively have to win, they're going to run him as much as they need to run.
Was it Combs or somebody else today said that this is around the time when Trevor Lawrence runs the ball more, and it's these kinds of games, just like Justin Fields, where any way you can do it, you can't save them for 6 games down the road. You've got 2 games left.
Jeremy says, need a few individuals on defense to make an impact in this game like Steve Miller and Evan Spencer did in his 2015 semifinal. I mean, that's I mean, if one of the defensive linemen gets a pick 6, I think that's they should They should call the Steve Miller play. That's a good idea. Yeah,
they don't call that nearly enough.
Haskell Garrett ran it to very well earlier this year.
And they haven't called it since.
I know, but it's sad.
Larry Johnson has lost control.
Akeem says we all know Dabo's been stealing signs for a long time. Well, you said it. I didn't. Yakov says, what is the over-under on how many times Herbstreit sends Brent Venables and his adjustments? Well, I'm going to be blessed to not be sitting in the press box and having to listen to the game. So, and you won't really listen either. So, I don't know. The answer is the over-under is it's not our problem. So enjoy.
We do not have a line for that. It's off the board, our board.
German Drummer 13, do you think the plus 7.5 spread is appropriate?
I think it's a little high, but after that Northwestern game, I think it's appropriate. I mean, it's hard to ignore that game.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And Clemson feels like they're coming off their best game of the season, and Ohio State feels like they're coming off very much not their best game of the season. So That doesn't necessarily mean that that's going to be what you have moving forward. But coming off of that game, like, I can see that. And you know, again, like this is a game where there are a lot of games this year. It was just like, okay, the only drama is how many points will Ohio State win this game by? A lot or more than a lot? This one, it's like Ohio State could win this game by 2 touchdowns. Ohio State could lose this game by 2 touchdowns. Yeah. Ohio State could win this game on, you know, a late touchdown like like Clemson did last year, or vice versa. Like, I don't think anyone's losing this game by 28 points.
Who's more likely to do that?
To lose by 28 points? I would say Ohio State. I think there's a way Ohio State gets completely blown off the field. I don't trust this Ohio State defense enough to hold Clemson to, you know, I think, you know, Ohio State, if Ohio State's really dominating the game, they're doing it on the ground and they're running the ball and they're pounding it, and that doesn't lend itself to scoring 64 points. And I don't think the Ohio State defense is going to hold Clemson to 17 or anything. So I don't necessarily see a route to Ohio State blowing Clemson out. But I remember before the Big Ten championship game in 2014 saying the only thing that would surprise me tonight would be a blowout Ohio State win. I can see literally anything else happen. So as always,
Ohio State by 28.
Here we are, the experts. Ta-da! Let's see. I don't care for the YouTube comments feature on my phone and its functionality. Let's see. Vinay says, will we see a wide receiver reverse pass for a touchdown to Garrett Wilson? I mean, it would be a nice callback 6 years to another game in this stadium.
I don't know who can throw the ball, though.
Wide receivers who can throw the ball. Do they have a converted wide receiver?
Unless they throw Cameron
Martinez out there, yeah. And he was more of a runner. Mm-hmm. So you could throw C.J. Stroud out there. You could do that. Let's see. Michael Hogg says, hope us and our family had a great Christmas. My family had a great Christmas. I assume yours did. Yeah. One thing that you can take positive in 2020, considering it was a bad year. I mean, there was an Ohio State football season.
Yes,
it was not exactly the Ohio State football season I think we all thought.
You've been watching college football.
You know, I mean, yeah, Ohio State has gotten through the college football season. I think back in the summer I said if there's an Ohio State-Michigan game, I would take that right now. One game, I would take that. Now, we did not get that, but we got...
Ohio State is in the playoffs.
We got a reasonable semblance of Ohio State regular season, Ohio State in the Big Ten championship game, Ohio State in college football playoff, and they get the game. They get the matchup they've wanted for 12 months.
Right.
I mean,
they will hang the banner, the Final Four banner, from the rafters of Ohio Stadium. You got to appreciate it.
Rafters coming in 2021. Big news. Jeremy says the secondary needs to collectively play sound as a unit.
Yes.
I mean, they're going to have to.
For sure.
Vedranya says, I think the play of the Ohio State defensive line, the number one key to the game, keep Lawrence hemmed into the pocket and stop Etienne on run plays. I mean, if they can really not let either of those guys, you know, if those guys finish with 75 yards rushing total, Ohio State probably wins the game.
Right. That leads to maybe like 24, 27 points for Clemson, and Ohio State should be able to outdo that in that scenario.
RM says, Herbie says Brent Venables like it's one word. OG Buckeye says Herb should never associate himself with Ohio State. He'd be charged with espionage in Columbus. Now, he is.
That's right.
He's
a Buckeye dad now.
Well, his third son. He's got his twin boys who walk on for Clemson. His youngest son his third son, is just announced he's walking on at Ohio State. So Ohio State has bought themselves some good publicity, and now he'll be a double agent against Clemson, I guess. Yakov says, have you guys been able to enjoy some good meals, or due to the situation, just McDonald's drive-thru, etc.? Now, we have our Big Ten championship game trip was drive-thru exclusive,
yes.
Very uninspiring. We were approved for why don't you guys go to a nice meal? It was like, well, I guess Culver's was the nicest of the meals.
It's pretty good.
It was pretty good. On this one we were down in Tuscaloosa last night, had some very good barbecue at Archibald's. Went to Mother's, which is an institution down here in New Orleans. I've only been to New Orleans one other time, and I went there as well for that one because that was one of those places I was told, you got to go there. Yeah. So had po' boy and jambalaya for lunch. I'm sure we'll have something delightful for dinner.
Yes.
Yeah,
we're just getting started.
Yeah, we're not doing anything fancy, but the goal, whenever we go somewhere interesting, the goal is always don't eat at a place you've heard of before.
Yes.
Don't eat at a place you've eaten, that you could eat at when you're at home. So we'll and also I should probably mix in a salad at some point because I'm.
Well, there was slaw on the po' boy. So
That's true. Basically, there's my vegetables for the day. Yeah. Let's see. Have I mentioned I don't care for the chat function? Jeremy says believes the running game is peaking at the right time.
Yes.
What's your thought? Yeah, I mean,
For sure.
when your running back sets a school record for a single game, that's a good
when your
good
running back
indication.
says everything is slowing down for him, and he knows where everybody is going.
Yeah.
Now he's kind of entered the matrix.
Yeah.
And so that's what you want.
Yeah. What are the thoughts on Clemson defending the run? I mean, I think their defensive line is good. Their defensive line is also young. They're talented enough that Ohio State shouldn't just blow them off the ball, probably. But if you've got a couple true freshmen starting there, I wonder, can you trap someone? Can you get someone out of position? Can you use that guy to be the option guy? I mean,
Under 183 and a half yards rushing.
For Ohio State?
Yes.
Over.
That's pretty good.
I mean, that would be a lot of rushing yards. But I mean, that's 100 for Sermon and 80 for Fields, and I think that's both. I think that's reasonable. And then you get
That's sack adjusted.
yeah. Oh, sack adjusted.
Total rushing yards.
Total rushing yards. Yeah. I mean, yeah, sure. I could see that. Vinay says, "See you guys in the Superdome in 2 days." I can't tell if Vinay is excited that he has tickets for this game. I'm not sure. Jeremy says, "Got to watch out for the swing passes from to Etienne on the outside. They love to do that." Yep. Jacob says he wishes there was a way we could promise a Buckeye win. I mean, we can promise it. We're not really the ones who are responsible for delivering it, so we'll.
Like the post office. You tell you it's going to be there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, your Buckeye win is stuck somewhere in a processing facility in Texas. We'll see if it gets here on time.
3 days out for delivery.
Let's see. Can you imagine? OG Buckeye says, "Can you imagine Trevor Lawrence's last game of his career is against Ohio State?" I mean, we were talking about this on the way down. I think Ohio State fans might really, 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 really enjoy ending Clemson season. I think that might be something that Ohio State fans would be pretty happy with.
Maybe. Do they really want to watch Dabo in the post-game press conference talking about losing this game? Is that really how far we have fallen as people?
I don't know what our record for the most watched video on YouTube might be, but it might be number one that, number two if we do a what was the old TV show where they watch movies and
yes, MSTK.
Yes,
3000.
yeah, Mystery Science Theater 3000. Yes, if we Mystery Science Theater 3000, that might be the second most watched. Hey, remind me, I have an idea for content later. Yakov says, "Have you interacted with any Clemson media there?" There is not a ton of media here right now. People are just starting to get in today.
Yeah, tomorrow is like the dead day in terms of there's nothing going on. So
I think a lot of people are traveling tomorrow.
And there's nothing going on that you can't do at home.
Right, yeah. Now, we just wanted to get here early. We like being here, being able to, and you can talk to more people. And Clemson folks are getting here. Our buddy Matt Colling, we mentioned earlier, who we'll have on the show at some point later the week. He, I think, is getting here tomorrow. So we have not really seen any other media yet, but that will change shortly, quite possibly tonight. Let's see. Vinay says less screens going east and west. Need Garrett going downfield with the ball. I mean, yep, that's.
Well, anyway, you can get him the ball, but I do think there needs to be some vertical stuff going on with him, especially with the backup safety. Or whoever is guarding him, whether it's the third corner, the backup safety, a starting safety, a linebacker, it doesn't matter.
Akeem says, "Never been more pumped up for this game. Swear, hope the scoop goes live just before the kickoff." I mean, there are restrictions on broadcast. We will have to. I mean, we'll have to figure out what we're doing. We have. Let's just do the logistics right here. The listeners love that. Yeah, we have to. I'm shooting photos in the stands. He's up in the press box. We'll probably do it like we did for the Big Ten championship game, where we're somewhere like this, 4 hours before the game, do a pregame show, and then we go inside and we're in completely different spots.
Then that way you guys can watch Alabama lose to Notre Dame.
What channel's that game on?
Sci-fi.
Topher Farrow says, "Why does it feel like everyone brings up how OSU lost a lot last year is not better, but does not bring up that Clemson probably lost even more. Their whole offensive line, 2 steroid receivers, and on defense. I mean, we talked about it a little earlier, but that's the whole thing where if you were an Ohio State fan, you're looking at this Ohio State team going, well, it's not as good as last year's Ohio State team. But Clemson fans are going, well, this team's not as good as last year's Clemson team. And, if you're watching it, you're watching your team thinking, these are all the reasons this team might not win the national championship. And you're not necessarily thinking that about the other teams. You're looking at them going, wow, look at Trevor Lawrence. He's incredible. Look at how badly they beat Notre Dame. And neither of these teams are as good as they were last year. I don't think there's a question about that.
But plus, Clemson has had more games to get everything as much figured out as possible.
Yes.
So they know more about themselves. So they're more of a known quantity than Ohio State. So maybe that's why there's less talk about their failings.
Yeah. Well, and I think that that works in two ways. One is they've had more time to work things out. Two is there's a better chance that you get surprised with ta-da and the prestige. Ohio State has fixed this problem that you didn't know that they could fix. Clemson is like, they are what they are at this point. Yep. They're not going to be magically getting infinitely better over the next week. Vinay says Notre Dame would get blown out by Ohio State too. You don't have to convince me. I have angry Notre Dame fans in my mentions every time I say something along those lines. Vitaranya says, is Justin Fields not going through progressions to throw to tight ends if wide receivers are covered? I mean, I think that's been a consistent issue. I mean, he's looking at Olave, he's looking at Wilson.
And I think a lot of off of the field.
Yeah. And there was a play, and I think I've talked about this on one of these shows. It was a 2-point play. I was sitting in the end zone at the Big Ten championship game, right in front of me, and he tried to really fit it into a real tight window to Garrett Wilson, and like Luke Farrell's sitting like 10 yards further out, and it was just like there's no one around him, but they just never
didn't get that.
There's
far.
Garrett Wilson, and didn't get that far out. I think we're almost done. Vinay says, I think notice the Buckeyes have played down to their competition at times. I think this game will be a lot better on both sides of the ball.
We talked about that yesterday, where the reason they haven't played their best game yet is because they haven't had to. And so now that they have to, will they? Should they? Can they? Yes, they can. Will they, I think, is the question. But yeah, now they need to. If you play down to Clemson, you must be really, really good.
That would playing down to Clemson is not a bad thing. That would be, a competitive game. This another close game that comes down to the final minutes. Like I'd take that right now.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to get to watch another exciting game. Jeremy says, hope we can get this damn Woody curse off the Buckeyes once and for all against Clemson. And I have written most of my 10 facts and figures, numbers and notes to know for this week. Ohio State 0-4 against Clemson. That is the team they've played the most without beating them. The only other one they've played more than twice without beating them is Florida State. One of the teams they've played twice without beating them is South Carolina. They're 0-6 all time against teams from the state of South Carolina. Need to get Coastal Carolina on the schedule. Break that curse.
And hey, if Ohio State doesn't beat Clemson this year, there's always next year.
Yeah.
And then the year after that. And then the year after that. Over the next 10 years, Tom, how many times are they going to play? 6? 5? 7?
I'd set the over-under at 3.5. I don't think they're going to. I mean, someone's going to fall off. They're not going to play. They won't both make the playoffs every year. Someone's going to lose in the semifinals.
Well, I'm telling you, Citrus Bowl, Champs Sports Bowl, Alamo Bowl, Holiday Bowl.
I'm not up on my my conference bowl tie-ins. Karen says, "Wish I had a ticket to that game." You and a lot of other people. Yeah, this is such a weird. It's weird for us because it's been weird going to these games with no one else there, but it's really weird to think that literally no one other than media and families have seen Ohio State play football in person this year until this game, and there will be, I don't know, a few thousand,
3,000, I think,
a few thousand fans there. I mean, that's crazy. And oh my goodness, what are national championship tickets going to go for if they get there? Yakov says, how would you compare the Superdome to more modern stadiums such as Jerry World or the University of Phoenix Stadium? I
haven't been inside yet.
I have. Yeah, I was inside in 2007. I assume they've done a lot since then. I mean, the outside looks completely different than it did. It was like more silvery back then. So the outside looks different. I assume they've done a lot more inside. We will probably not get to go inside until the game. Normally, game week, we would be able to go inside and go get them painting the fields and all that kind of stuff. Don't get to do any of that stuff this year. So, so we'll let you know on the 1st. Let's see. Scott wants to know when Ohio State arrives in New Orleans on New Year's Eve. We don't know an exact time yet, but they will get here New Year's Eve. I mean, this is a road game.
Yep.
This is not a bowl trip where you're there for a week. This is fly in the night before, sleep in the hotel, get up, go to the game, fly home.
Clemson gets here tomorrow.
Yeah, Clemson's here an extra day, but that's it. And so the no normal seven day. OG Buckeye says he'll sell his house to get a national championship game, and he doesn't even own a house yet. Well, then I have there's a problem with your plan there.
This sounds like a pyramid scheme. Is your house a pyramid, sir?
Let's see. Jeremy says supposedly leaving Thursday around 3:30 p.m. So yeah, I mean that's getting here early evening. That's about right. Vinay says he thinks he may be in the same hotel as a bunch of Buckeyes. I don't. The team usually blocks off a whole hotel. That's how they've been doing it this year. They get a hotel and there's no one else there. Karen says the secondary worries me. I mean, yeah. I mean, there's that is a reasonable fear. Let's see. Michael asked about doing a home and home. I would love to have Ohio State and Clemson doing a home and home.
As we know, they have one with Alabama coming up.
They do. Gerd may or may not have forgotten about that while we were standing in Tuscaloosa. Yes, they do. I think we have gotten through everyone. So, if you did not get your question typed out in time, that's okay. Great news. We'll be out here again tomorrow. I think it might be raining. I don't know. We'll be somewhere tomorrow. We'll be somewhere tomorrow. Yeah. But we'll. Jeremy wants to know if it was Bama's choice to play in Jerry World instead of Buckeyes, and the answer is yes, because there are 16,000 tickets available there and like 3,000 for this game. So Alabama chose to do that instead. So that was the reasoning behind that. So, but yeah, we'll be back. Okay. We'll be back. Goodness, what's tomorrow?
Tomorrow's
Wednesday.
Wednesday.
Tomorrow's Wednesday.
The 30th.
Yeah. So we'll have a Wednesday show. We'll have a Thursday show. Mm-hmm. We'll have a Friday pregame show. We'll be talking.
Who's on the morning scoop tomorrow?
I'm gonna guess it's you. Feels like it's probably you.
Can we just cut some of this?
See, that's good thinking. We'll probably record a separate morning scoop for tomorrow morning.
Record a separate intro.
Yeah, there you go. Now you're thinking lazy.
It's repackaging.
Now you're thinking lazy. Yeah, so we'll have a new episode of the Morning Scoop tomorrow morning. I'm gonna have Ross Fulton on the Thursday Morning Scoop to talk about the article he wrote about Clemson's sort of the X's and O's of Clemson's defense and what to expect there. That's always I love talking to Ross. Yeah. Every time I talk to Ross, it's like I hit stop. I'm like I just got smarter. That's great. Now I'll sound smarter when I talk later about this game. So, yeah, it's. We'll have a bunch of coverage. Make sure you check that all at BuckeyeScoop.com. And if you're not a member, like my goodness, we have had there have been answers to some of your questions that we have not been able to answer here.
Right.
On our Ask the Insiders board.
Yes.
So if you are asking these questions to us and you're interested in the answers, there is information that is not ours to share that is on the Ask the Insiders board that may be of interest to you. So you should consider becoming a member of BuckeyeScoop.com.
That's
sales pitch over.
No, that's good advice. It's not a sales pitch.
Yeah.
If you want to know this stuff, there is a place that you can get a lot of that, and also ask all of these same questions, and we'll can massage perhaps an answer. Can't always answer everything.
Yeah.
Out of fairness to the individuals, but it's a fun place. It's certainly a good investment, and if you are watching this, you would find that place interesting. So check that out, BuckeyeScoop.com. Sign up, become a member, Tom.
Yeah, well, there's a reason we call it's not just our Insiders the board, it's the Ask the Insiders board. And the reason is, if you have questions, we want you to ask us, and we will answer them as best we can.
Right.
And sometimes we can answer them better there than we can other places.
Yes.
And sometimes we can't, but again, if you are the type of person who is watching this on a Wednesday evening, Tuesday?
During dinner?
Tuesday evening, goodness.
we just established 2 minutes ago that tomorrow is Wednesday.
Well, my brain keeps going, it can't possibly still be Tuesday, is it? It's been a week already. But yeah, if you're the type of person watching this at home on a Tuesday evening, you're probably the type of person that would enjoy being a member of the site.
I would agree with that. So thank you all for listening. Thank you for watching. And we will talk to you guys tomorrow.